Hi everyone. Since this video review is going up around the time of Halloween, I thought I'd review a book with a slightly spooky theme. And so today's review is John Harris's Without Trace. Now the only reason I picked this is for the super cool front cover image, which is a hypothetical what if had the Aquitania become a ghost ship and disappeared into the mists of time, kind of a Cunard Flying Dutchman. But aside from the hypothetical image on this front cover, everything else in this book is deliberate, objective, and anchored in facts. Or at least facts that were known at the time in 1981. This book is now 40 years old. What John Harris does is looks at 8 instances where either the ships themselves have disappeared or the passengers and crew have disappeared, leaving the ship abandoned. And the 8 instances are the loss of the HMS Erebus and Terror, and should you be interested in that, please see my earlier review about the book on HMS Terror. He also looks at the disappearance of the crew on board the Mary Celeste, which is probably the most famous ghost ship. The loss of the USS Maine in 1898. We'll get to that in a sec. The loss of the ocean liner Waratah in 1909 off South Africa, probably the most enduring ocean liner mystery still. The loss of the USS Cyclops, a ship whose name keeps coming up whenever there's a documentary about the Bermuda Triangle. It's either that or Flight 19. The other 2 vessels included in this book are the Joyita, which was a pleasure craft whose passengers and crew disappeared in the South Pacific in 1955, and the Teignmouth Electron, whose sole crew member, Donald Crowhurst, disappeared during a around-the-world yacht race. Now, as I noted, this book is 40 years old, so some of the information in here, particularly with Erebus and Terror, has been updated. But his level-headed approach to each mystery is a refreshing take. You are not going to get someone going, "It was aliens!" in this book. John Harris himself was a best-selling novelist and a sailor and a crewman. So he has first-hand practical knowledge of what it's like to be at sea and to work at sea. So he brings this pragmatic objectivity to his analysis. And it's refreshing to go through each idea and its pros and cons. And that is the strength of this book. For the chapter on the Waratah, it is probably the most objective and in-depth analysis of the different theories, and in particular the idea that the ship itself was tender and that its propensity to roll is what ultimately caused it to sink. With the USS Maine, which is probably the only one that really doesn't fit in this book, since there were many witnesses and the ship itself sank in Havana Harbor, so it's not like it randomly disappeared and teleported elsewhere, aka the Philadelphia experiment, but that's something else entirely. But I think the point with the USS Maine is that the true reason for its explosive loss is that the fire in one of its coal bunkers set off the ammunition, which caused it to sink, whereas for many decades it had been purported to have been a Spanish mine, and conveniently it led to the Spanish-American War. So with that wreck, it can be said that the truth was hiding in plain sight. Now, this book comes in a nice pocket-sized paperback. There's a small photo section in the middle, and you can see a few images there. Basically images of personnel and the vessels of all 8 instances. There are some maps, including one at the beginning, which shows the relative positions of the ships across the globe. Now, this book was successful enough to have a companion volume, which 9 years later, in 1990, was released, and it was Lost at Sea, which follows the same format, but this looks at other ocean liner shipwrecks. And on this front cover, you can see the Empress of Ireland rolling over and sinking. Now, back to Without a Trace though. I love the fact that this is a pragmatic and objective analysis. And being a work of serious study, there is a bibliography and a section on sources at the back. So for those who wish to explore further different ideas and other books about each of those 8 losses, there's plenty there as well. I mean, with the Mary Celeste as well, there's just so much written about it, you can fill an entire chapter. There is one which is in my queue to do at a later date that also tries, like what this book does, to go back to the original sources and to look at everything from a more objective eye. Again, this is a great book to check out, and whenever mysteries come up, you always get the fantastical, you always get the outrageous, you always get the conspiracy theories. So it's refreshing to just have a realistic, level-headed take on what may have caused either the loss of the ship or the loss of the passengers and crew. And for that, this book is a 4 captain's hats. Being almost Halloween time, however, if you are interested in some of the more fantastical, strange stories out there, may I recommend 2 books for you. May I recommend From the Depths, edited by Mike Ashley, which comes from the British Library Tales of the Weird. So if you feel like some supernatural takes of the sea, there's this one. And there is this slim but nonetheless entertaining volume by Jack Strange called Strange Tales of the Sea, which takes some dramatic license on otherwise well-known mysteries. So should you be in the mood for spooky reading, or maybe after watching Ghost Ship you feel like settling down with something to read, then these books fit the bill. But if you are interested in ships that have disappeared without a trace, and you want to understand objectively, deliberately, how and what potentially caused them to end up in that way, then check out this book. There are few and far between where we get objective takes on mysteries. This is one of them. So do hunt it down and check it out. And if there are any other books, themes, topics, anything you'd like reviewed, if I have them in my library, I absolutely will review them for you. So until next time, enjoy and happy reading, everyone.